Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review Morning Briefing. It is Tuesday, the 17th of September. I'm Davy Klaassen, and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barry. How's it going, Joshua?
Yeah, it's going good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Sun is shining down here in Warringtonsville, so that's good. Bit of an Indian summer. What about up there in Glasgow?
It was actually really nice yesterday, and I think it's meant to be a nice week. So we've had an absolutely terrible summer, and then stereotypically September will actually be all right. So I think it's gonna be a nice week up here as well. And but we shall see. Never trust the weather apps and all that.
Yeah. 22 degrees.
22, wow.
Could be, which is bonkers.
Better clear up our afternoons a bit then in that case, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, people aren't tuning in because they want to hear about the weather. They're tuning in because they want to hear about Rangers, of course, and lots to talk about. What we're going to do is delve into a very interesting piece from your good self yesterday, Joshua. You can find it on the website, folks, or in the link below this video, where you look at the Rangers summer recruitment, of course, big changes in the summer with regards to the squad, with players heading out the door and players coming in. The average age of the squad has been reduced quite considerably, and after Sunday's victory at Tannadice, I think it was 1-0 flattered Dundee United more than anything else. I think we all wanted Rangers to score a fair few more goals after Tom Lawrence's early opener, but some players who've shown in that game and have impressed in a Rangers jersey since arriving in the summer. Jefte is one, Connor Barron is another, and the glimpses we've seen of Hamza Igamane have left many supporters, including me, excited about what he can do in a Rangers jersey. But really interesting stuff from a recruitment point of view. Are we starting to now see why Philip Clement wanted to bring the average age down for a start? Oscar Cortez is another one, of course.
Yeah, he was good in the first half, wasn't he?
Yeah, we're starting to see now these players. I think I said to Chris yesterday that Clement said himself it won't be until probably October time when the team start motoring, but we're starting to see shoots of that.
Yeah, well, the difficulty is that you don't get time to build, I think, at a club like Rangers without showing the process. But obviously, equally, as we've kind of reiterated, I think, throughout the summer, the solution to a long-term problem has to be a long-term solution. You know, it can't just be what I think Rangers have done in a lot of windows, which is change their approach and maybe getting a lot of players who are ready now. So the average age, I've got to hear of the 11 players that Rangers brought in on loan and permanently this summer was 23. The average age of the 13 who departed was 28. So right in a way, that's a pretty clear distinction of a change. And the average age of 23 that Rangers have brought in, that is pushed up significantly by the fact that Liam Kelly, your backup goalkeeper, is 28, and Robin Propper, your centre half, is 30, going to turn 31 soon. But there has been a change. The difficulty this summer, and I'll read out a quote from Clement, but the difficulty if you speak to people close to this situation this summer is that Rangers had to add value to their squad, but also get a squad who could compete now. And we're talking about one game against Dundee United, so we could feasibly be speaking in two games about a squad that we maybe perceive isn't ready. So it is a live conversation, isn't it? But you have to reduce the wage bill as well and do all that, as Clement has come back to. Wow, you're losing a number of players out of contract because the squad management has been so bad, especially for the level of wages that the Rangers squad had eventually risen to. Clement said after the game at the weekend, he said, "I believe really hard in the potential of this squad. It's not the easiest thing with the situation we had. 7 players going out the building for £0, replacing them and adding strength to the squad. It's a very difficult thing to do." Effectively saying to just, stay to before you think about moving forwards, just in terms of numbers, but to just get to the same place, you have to invest because you don't have money coming in for the likes of Lundstrom and Barisic. You do have money freed up in the wages that have been freed up by them leaving, and increasingly throughout the window as Rangers struggled to maybe move on the extent of players initially hoped, although they still did move a number of players on. That finance was increasingly freed up as more loan deals and loan to buys were explored. Obviously, the Bajrami deal, it took a late twist and he came in permanently, as we kind of covered the last couple of weeks on the website. But Clement also said previously at his press conference on Friday, it was a difficult exercise for everyone, the recruitment team, the board, budget-wise, to do it in a good way. That's the reality of the moment. On the other side, we have several players leaving for free who'd played a lot of games in recent years, but were over their best period. It's a new cycle. You need to bring young players in who can add value for the future, but perform directly also. And that's a difficult thing to do. I still think that if you look at Rangers summer window, there's gaps in the squad. This isn't a squad that's completely ready, is it? That especially, I think the number 6 position, as good as Connor Barron has been in certain games, you're light in that area. You're light in other areas of the pitch as well. But if we take those 3 players that the pieces kind of nosed off, Derek, and you highlighted from the weekend, Cortez only played 45 minutes. Jefte's 20 years old. I think he is a better player than Borna Barisic now. But Barisic had a few really good seasons, and that shouldn't be overstated. But I don't think he was that suited to Clement's style of football. We've seen what Jefte can do going forward, but he's also had, and I think he will have a couple of games where you think defensively he looks a little bit weaker, and that's clearly the weaker element of his game. But he's definitely made a good start for being 20 years old. He's younger than Robbie Fraser. You know, people forget how young he is, and I think he started pretty impressively. Connor Barron, is he an upgrade on John Lundstrom's form at the end of last season? I think he is. Again, I still think Rangers in that number 6 position could have done with more. Barron only played about 90 minutes for Aberdeen last season. It's a lot of trust to put in him over the course of the season. But I think at the moment he's obviously again on significantly lower wages than Lundstrom in the start of the season really well. And Igamane, we've not seen much of him, but I put in my piece, I think it shows that Rangers supporters have been kind of starved of that individualism or just someone exciting in those areas for a couple of seasons because of the reaction you see to someone who came on and looked really good, didn't he? In particular, the way that he was able to drop in and link the play and then drive forward at the Dundee United defence. So we've not seen much of him, Derek, but obviously the kind of player he's replacing the squad, the Danilo situation aside, is Kemar Roofe, who'd only played 6.790 minutes in the last 2 seasons at Rangers. So if you take those three situations in isolation, will those players have bad games? Yes, but the fact that they're younger makes sure that they have resale value in the future, make sure that they're going to get better, and they're obviously as well coming in on lower wages, and that is the balance that Clement is saying Rangers had to strike in the summer window. So by no means was it, I think, a brilliant window where you can say all the issues are resolved, all the targets were achieved. Yeah, it will take a few, but I think it's also important to point out that the direction is different, and in a few situations you're starting to see the benefit of that.
Yeah, some interesting points off the back of that. Just on Igamane, Jamie says he raises the point. Size of Igamane's legs, they're huge. They absolutely are. He's a stocky fellow, and he can handle himself, it looks like. So I'm very excited about seeing more from him. John with the point says, would you start Igamane on Saturday? Said this yesterday, I think, on the show. I'd be starting him against Dundee, Joshua, even if he... Yeah. I know that he hadn't... Well, Clement admitted that he did have an injury when he arrived at the club after the game at the weekend, but I would be looking to start him, even if he just gets, an hour or what have you. I want to see more of him. Would you start him against Dundee?
Yeah, we're going to cover, myself and Adam on the Tactics podcast this week, and on the website, we're going to have a little bit more of a look at how he compares to Dessers, because that game on Sunday, I think, and I tweeted about this before and after the game to kind of put a bit of a picture to what I was trying to say in my muddled fashion in the middle of a game when, as you know, you're trying to write a million things. I don't think those type of games suit Dessers that much, because you see when Rangers don't dominate the territory and their wingers are pushed back, the striker's isolated. We see this most obviously in Old Firm games. The striker's isolated, and because Dessers isn't a back-to-goal striker or someone who's really going to that often punish a team when there's a lot of space, I would say maybe if he's facing the goal, but not if he's the one holding the ball up, then that's when I think it becomes too easy for opponents to pen Rangers in. And we saw that, I think, before Igamane came on. When Igamane came on, it didn't totally solve it, but he created that chance for Lawrence, didn't he? And that came all the way from a proper pass. Igamane dropping into the space, turning, playing the pass through. So I think you can see why he'd probably be a more maybe suitable profile for those types of games. Why not play him? I mean, who'd your front four be? If Cherney's better after his virus, you're maybe looking at Cherney, Cortez, Igamane, and Bajrami. I think that'll be interesting to see, wouldn't it? And he looks ready to contribute. The frustration for Clement, I'm sure, will be that because Danilo is not there, he can't maybe try Igamane off the left-hand side, or he's got to be a little bit more protective with him because he's the only other option. But as Stevie said a couple of weeks ago, and I think this is a good point, there's not many Rangers players who are playing well enough to completely merit their space in the squad at the moment in the starting 11. That applies to Bajrami as well, even though Lawrence did score that goal at the weekend and I thought played well. So we've not really seen Dessers rotated since he came to the club because of the injuries in the striker situation. It's been Roof and Danilo behind him. Maybe that'll help him as well, the fact that he isn't going to have to play all these games all the time and be constantly out there for 90 minutes, because I did think at the weekend he didn't have a great performance in it, and it wasn't a game that really suits him. He had a good chance before halftime, probably should have taken it quicker than he eventually did. But yeah, perhaps being able to rotate that spot with Igamane will actually help him as well.
Yep, let's get them started. So that's what I want. We'll talk about our teams later on in the week, but there's a comment here as well. Day in the Life says, would you play Kelly on Saturday, lads? I would be tempted to play Liam Kelly on Saturday. He's been brought in as backup to Jack Butland, of course, but yeah, I'd be playing him on Saturday. Would you be playing him, Joshua?
I don't know, because it's still a big game, isn't it? And it's you want to play your strongest team, but he's come in to play games. I know what you mean. He's a
good goalkeeper. It's not like you're sticking an outfield player in.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true. That would be a whole different conversation. I mean, he's going to play games at some point. Did Clement change his cup goalkeeper last season? I don't think he did at all. I think it was consistently.
No. Just McCrory at Dumbarton, that was it.
Yeah, McCrory at Dumbarton, and that was it. So I don't know. I kind of have a feeling that he might want to keep that, because it's Saturdays before I guess it's Malmo on Thursday, so maybe you do actually rotate a little bit more. There's not loads of games in September though, so my feeling was he might just keep Butland with that back four because they kept a clean sheet. But equally, as we discussed before the game at the weekend, Dujon Sterling needs to play. Where does he play? You've got Kassim Wierjo or Nana. You've got him as well, who can play the centre half or right back. And I think Dujon Sterling, we'll talk about him maybe throughout the week at another point. I was actually looking at the proportion of minutes he'd played in various positions last season, and it is what you'd expect, very sporadic. As I keep coming back to, I think he needs a 1 or 2 maximum positions to kick on in, because everyone saw how good a player he can be last season. He had some injury issues to overcome. I think he's a player who should be in Rangers' strongest starting 11.
Yep, lots of comments coming in on the chat. Play your strongest team. Some looking for Kelly to take the gloves between the sticks on Saturday. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what the manager decides to do with regards to that. Just on Igamane as well, Bluebells or Blue isn't getting carried away. He says he hasn't scored a goal yet. Let's calm down. He looks fantastic, but still a lot more to see before we crown him as the second coming. I thought it was interesting. I said this to Chris yesterday, Joshua, about Clement's words about Igamane and them not being able to afford him if they bought him next summer. So they are expecting a lot of improvement in this boy. And as we touched on earlier on, I mean, it's a player trading model that we want to see at Rangers. Is the other club across the city have one. Rangers want to have one, and guys like this will you'll be looking to move on after 2 or 3 years for big money.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the fact that Celtic obviously outspent Celtic spending on deadline day. I think outspent Rangers overall spending in the window, if you're not including Oscar Cortez's fee, and that obviously is a loan to buy. So I don't think we should in this conversation. They were able to spend big, but they also still made a profit, and that's the big difference, as you rightly highlight, that selling players on and having that pathway is absolutely integral to bringing players in. But to do that, you need a settled recruitment policy, and you need a settled kind of recruitment head, if you will, and instead of that changing every single season, you need I would argue, a very similar play style, or certainly a kind of overall game model that you recruit to. So not doing what Rangers have done, which is jump from a manager who uses fullbacks and no wingers to a manager who uses wingers, and then repeating that process again and ending the season with absolutely no wingers. You still see the effects of that at the weekend, Derek, where Kieran Dowell was playing there, even though that's not really a position he's played before. Okay, maybe he's played off the sides at Norwich, but an out-and-out winger is what Clement kind of favours in that area. But that's still the legacy of previous summers' recruitment, when Rangers in 2023 were recruiting for a very different style of play. I agree with the comment, because Igamane, we've only seen 30 minutes, something.
Yeah.
Maybe 30 minutes at Dundee United, maybe not even that much, and then obviously a little bit in the Old Firm as well. But I think similar to someone like Diomande, who I think is getting a little bit of an unfair rap at the moment. Diomande or other players, Cortez, I think will come onto a game. You just really need to see him do it consistently. Jefte as well. These are examples of Rangers going into different markets and not just going to maybe the English Championship or markets that they know and trying to recruit differently, as we discussed at the top of the show. So will it take a little bit more time to look at how Igamane's going to be able to contribute this season? Yes, but equally, when a player comes off the bench like that and he looks comfortable, he doesn't look overawed by the occasion, and he wants to get on the ball and he can do a lot of different things, that's the profile of player Rangers need. I would argue at a stadium like Ibrox, people who are a bit carefree when they pick up the ball and aren't overawed by the occasion, aren't overawed by the home support. And Igamane, he looks, as I tweeted at the game and as I said to Chris after Sunday's game, he looks fun. Jefte looks fun as well, and Rangers haven't had enough fun players in recent years. So there's my cutting analysis on it.
Yeah, bring back the fun. There's not been enough of that, that's for sure. Just an interesting point I wanted to bring up because it annoyed me at the weekend, and he seems to be racking up a fair few of them. Jim with the point on the bookings, Jefte has been booked 4 times, and not one of them, in my view, have actually been bookings. The most profile one was that the worst sending off I've ever seen in my time watching football in the Kyiv game. That on Sunday was, Don Robertson, I don't know if he was trying to beat a world record for handing out yellow cards in a game, but that was harsh, Joshua. Some of the bookings, I think, well, pretty much all of them have been pretty harsh on Jefte so far.
I actually, it was about 5 minutes from the end of the game, and I can't remember who Don Robertson had yellow carded. It was either Nico Raskin or Dujon Sterling. Mm-hmm. Whoever I was sitting next to in the press box said to me, "That's Rangers." What was it, like 9th yellow card, or was it I don't know if that was between Dundee United and Rangers or just Rangers. And I couldn't. I'd obviously been paying attention and seeing the yellow cards go up, but it didn't feel like that type of game, did it? And there's a couple of bad tackles, obviously the one on Barron, and maybe a little bit in return on that one as well. But there wasn't. It didn't feel like a particularly kind of angry game. So I agree with that, and I wonder if you look back at the Kyiv game and the fact that Jefte is really fast. He's someone who goes into tackles maybe at pace quite a lot, and whether that comes into it a little bit and he's given a false representation because referees think he's being overeager in his tackles. But I agree with the comment. I did think it was harsh. He's still learning the game, isn't he? Because he's only 20 years old, and that shouldn't be forgotten. You've still got Ridvan to come in back into that position, and it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic works.
Yeah, does he get a game?
No. I don't think at the moment, no. They're slightly different players, but they've got a lot of similarities. But what I will say is it is nice for Rangers to have a few options at fullback as opposed to what they've had in recent years, which is one option at fullback or sometimes no options at fullback. You still had Dujon Sterling playing there in a couple of Old Firm games last season. At the moment, I'd say it's Jefte's shirt. And again, I'm not too keen on the idea of, listen, he's probably going to play on the left wing at points this season. But I think he's probably got a higher ceiling as a left back who can attack really well. And does he still have defensive areas to improve on? Yes, but that's going to come. And actually, I think he started the season relatively well defensively, all things considered. But if Ridvan was fully fit at the moment, I think Jefte is your left back because he's the one who's in form, and Ridvan still needs to prove that he can build up a number of games without pulling up injured.
Yep. King Gerald Spaniel says, any news on Ridvan? Not this moment. It was, I can't remember how many weeks was it the manager played it. 4 to 6, and he as of what day is it? I'm totally lost now. Tuesday. As of Friday, Ridvan was back doing some getting back to some individual work, but not kind of part of overall team training. He's the only, obviously, I think, injury absence at the moment. The fact that Raskin's back in there, and big season for him to see if he can, especially because of the lack of numbers in the middle of the pitch, to see if he can kind of, I guess, rediscover the momentum he had at one stage in his Rangers career as well. But I think Ridvan is the only injury at the moment. Yep.
There we go.
Yeah, Ross McCausland, of course, picked up a knock on international duty,
Yes.
kept him out of the game, but hopefully he'll be back in contention for the weekend's games. This was an interesting thing. I wanted to flag this up because I've seen this yesterday. We talked about will Rangers look towards the free agent market, Joshua? And John Adams with the point here. I seen this yesterday. Says, is it true we tried to offer Davy Klaassen a contract? News emerged on Twitter yesterday. The Italian transfer journalist Nicolo Schira said that done deal. Davy Klaassen's returning to Ajax as a free agent. He rejected Rangers and Royal Antwerp bids in the last days to return to Ajax. Of course, former Everton, Werder Bremen, Inter Milan. He was most recently at, capped several times for Holland as well. Would have quite liked Davy Klaassen. It says Davy Klaassen. Davy Klaassen at Ibrox, Joshua, but wasn't to be. But it shows that if this is true, Rangers I don't know if they are still looking at free agents, but there is still quality out there.
Yeah, they have been and Clement confirmed this publicly, monitoring the free agent market. Obviously, the number 6 position was one that kind of passed them by a little bit in the transfer window. They weren't able to get certain targets, and they had to change plans at certain points in the window as well. It was so dependent on getting certain players out of the building. You see that with the fact that, as soon as Campbell goes, Bajrami's into the club. As soon as Wright goes, Casemiro, I'm never going to get. I'm just going to go with Nana, but I'm trying my best. Previously, Lammers out, Cherney in, Goldson out, Proper in. So there's a real pattern that clearly emerged with that in relation to Rangers getting players out to get them in, as Clement publicly reiterated. So we know they have been monitoring the free agent market, and we know in particular the midfield is an area where they'd like to make another addition, because if you can add in the midfield, then Sterling can just be a right back, for example, and Nana can just be a centre half who covers maybe John Suter in that right-sided position and challenges him for that. If you don't get another midfielder, you've got Raskin, Diomande and Barron in there. Obviously, Sterling can play there as well, but then that restricts what you can do at right back. There's a knock-on effect, so then maybe Nana has to play at right back as opposed to centre back. So Rangers have a leaner squad, and that's probably reflected in players who can play different positions like Jefte, as we were just discussing, or Nana or Dujon Sterling. But equally, they are still light in that area you highlighted at the base of midfield, and that's led them to explore the free agent market. But it's a small pool of players, isn't it? And you're also competing, as this report suggests, you're competing with clubs who will have a stronger or a bigger ability to pay bigger wages than someone like Ajax, who've got Klaassen in to strengthen their midfield. Yeah,
there's some decent ones out there. No, Luton brought in Victor Moses last week, which was an interesting move. So, there is a few players out there that I would like to see at Rangers, but whether deals can be done, it remains to be seen. Just on Klaassen, Bluebells of Blue says it was a makeshift number 6 in his last days before being freed at more of a 10. Not a good move, in my opinion. Why the hell are we looking at that when with Rice sitting there rotting away, is what he says. I don't think he's not rotting away, but I think I speak for many in that I would like to see more of Bailey Rice. We touched on it last week, I think, Joshua, but we sort of compared him and Lennon Miller, who is playing regularly for Motherwell. Rangers brought Bailey Rice from Fir Park, of course, and apart from a handful of fleeting first-team appearances, we haven't really seen much of him. Now, we need to factor in he is still a kid. I think he's just going to turn 18 next month, if I'm not mistaken. So he is just a baby, but you wonder, I'd imagine they've got much more first-team experience had he stayed at Motherwell or had moved out on loan somewhere.
Yeah, I think there's definitely more to it, and we're going to cover this over the next couple of weeks. I won't put a time frame on it because obviously the midweek games are coming back. But if you look at Rangers' youth pathway in the last couple of seasons into the first team, it hasn't worked. Now, Ross McCausland, people will come back and say, what about Ross McCausland or Robbie Fraser? And both of those are true. However, what I would kind of push back to is that the very fact that under different managers, different players in the youth academy have made the step up, that there's not been the consistency needed. Even if you look at someone like Leon King, he's the example I go back to all the time, but he's someone who in 2022, Rangers let Leon Balogun go for Leon King to play football. Leon King played a lot in the Champions League, was probably overexposed in the Champions League for the options that Rangers had at centre-back. 2 years on from that time, Leon Balogun's just signed a second contract extension. Leon King he's not played at centre-back in a long, long time and is struggling to get any sort of match minutes. You can apply similar lessons to maybe someone like Adam Devine or Alex Lowry, and obviously individual form, and the players have to take responsibility as well. Someone like Jefte is 20 and is younger than a Lowry, or I think younger than Devine or Robbie Fraser or Ross McCausland. But when you have different heads of academy, different structures at a football club, different managers, different styles of play, and the squad planning, as we've clearly seen at Rangers over the last few years, hasn't been great. The example that I've used all summer is Jose Cifuentes, who this time last year, Rangers had spent a long time trying to get him to complete their midfield or add the extra part to the midfield. And the following summer, they were trying to get him out of the building. That is not a setting that is conducive to young players gradually breaking into a first team. Bailey Rice was someone who, under Michael Beale, made his debut really early, might have been as early as 16, and was starting to get a few minutes. It was actually just about this time last year that he signed a new contract extension at the club. So it's definitely one that I think it would be interesting to get Clement's thoughts on at one point, because does he see him as a number 6 in his first team options at the moment, or is he someone who he thinks is maybe a year away? How much has the style of play impacted him? Because obviously under Beale, still play with a number 6, but you've got a lot of midfielders around you, maybe more technical in midfield, whereas at the moment under Clement, there's maybe a lot more space to cover man-to-man off the ball. How does that impact Rice's chances of getting into the first team as well? But I maybe don't agree with the sentiment of rotting away in the comment, but I do think that topic of youth pathway, how it works, and what is the Bailey Rice at this age, especially because of the B team set up, and we know what that is like, and the difficulties that has entailed over the past number of years with Rangers trying to find a solution there. Mm-hmm. Is he getting the right type of games at this age for his development, especially when you compare it to someone like Lennon Miller, who is I don't know if he's the exact same age or very similar age.
He's a couple of months younger than him.
Right, okay.
Or older, one way or another. I'm not too sure who's older than who, but
he's either younger or older than him.
Yeah, they're roughly about the same age. They'd be in the same class at school, put it that way. So, but yeah, interestingly, Rangers B team do play tonight to take on Fraserburgh in the SPFL Trust Trophy. So good luck to Rangers B. That match taking place at Forth Bank, the home of Stirling Albion. I think the winners of that will play, for the life of me, I don't know who they play, but if they get past Fraserburgh, I think that the quarter-final draws already took place, I think, last week. So, yeah, good luck to the young Rangers side. And hopefully they do the business tonight against the Highland League outfit. There's an interesting point just on the academy. When I was on with Johnny appeared for the Q&A on the Rangers Review Extra channel yesterday. He made an interesting point. Yeah, his hot take was on the academy, and it was an interesting one. Has it really delivered for Rangers and down the years? And should a conversation be had about the future of it and whether it's worthwhile? So do go and check that show out, folks. I thought it was quite interesting stuff. Just on the issue of that, of course, a lot of off-field noise at this moment in time. I'd urge you to go and check out Chris's piece over on the website this morning. He profiles, of course, John Gilligan has taken over from John Bennett as Rangers chairman on a temporary basis. Rangers, incidentally, have enlisted a recruitment agency to search the market for a chairman and a chief executive. The role, of course, is vacant in the CEO role after the move to appoint Jim Gillespie of St Mirren collapsed earlier in the month. Rangers are also operating without a head of academy at present following the departure of Zeb Jacobs to Feyenoord, and the role of sporting director has become a topic of conversation, of course, among supporters. Both of those issues are not pressing ones for the board, is what is being reported. So, yeah, there you go. That is an update on the off-field stuff. Do go and check that piece out from Chris. An academy director, is that a pressing issue for you, Josh? Or would you like to see something sorted there? I mean, I think Jacobs left beginning of May, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and obviously there is kind of continuity in some staff members, some like David McCallum, who's been very involved at different levels of the academy and remains there and has been for a number of years. But clearly that's a I just think generally there's been, you're right, Zeb Jacobs was in as academy director for about probably a year as well, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure
Not
on the time frame at the top of my mind. There's just been too many changes to positions that require consistency. It led to believe that the Rangers executive structure that they have at the moment, Chris obviously mentions the topic of a sporting director, which has come up a little bit recently. That's, as Chris says, not a pressing issue. We're led to believe Rangers have this executive structure, which has elements like the head of recruitment, Niels Kloppen, as we're discussing with how recruitment has changed, Derek, what that maybe looks like, what that has entailed. We've previously discussed how Rangers have moved towards more of a football board structure behind the scenes as well, but believe that, as is obvious, that the focus is very much on getting that CEO in place, which is really, really important. John Gilligan is someone who really knows the club and is regarded as a very safe pair of hands in the interim until Rangers get that consistency they need. As we've discussed all summer, whether it be academy director, CEO, chairperson, chairman, whoever it may be, Rangers need consistency like any football club, I would say, in those positions. And certainly if you're not going to have consistency in one, or if you're going to have a lot of change in one of those areas, you can't afford to have change across the board in those areas, as is materialized kind of over the last number of months. And yeah, very much believe that the CEO is the priority. And once that CEO is in position, I think Rangers could do with him staying for a while to really stabilise things and set the vision long term.
Yes, absolutely. Right, that'll do us there. Big thanks to Joshua as ever, and thank you to you all for tuning in to the show. It's greatly appreciated, your support to the channel, so thank you. Right, we'll wrap up there. If we don't speak to you later on, then enjoy your Tuesday, and we'll be back on it tomorrow morning. Hopefully you can join us then. Until then, bye for now.